Hello everyone. So let's get started with the next session. I am Meela Mitra. I am the chair of this session. And in this session now we will, we'll figure out what is going on about misinformation and how to promote scientific temper. And these are things that a lot of us face. Beliefs that people have about astronomy and space that are not true. So let me go ahead and get started with our first speaker. That's Pallavi Kajrekar, and she's from she's done her Master of Science in Astrobiology at the University of Edinburgh.
Right, so I hope I'm audible. Hello everybody, thank you so much for being here after lunch. My credentials have been flashed here for a long time, so I won't bore you with them anymore. But I am trained in astrobiology, I have been communicating it, I have been teaching it. And teaching something like this across 2 continents and 4 countries have taught me some insights that I hope I can share with you today. Right, so the basics first. Astrobiology is the study of the origin, evolution, distribution and future of all life in the universe, and that includes human life as well, or like Earth life as well, right? So we have a crowd of communicators and educators. Quick show of hands, how many of you have faced this question at least once? Do aliens exist? Almost everybody has, right? And it's quite common because it is such a humane question. It is so filled with human curiosity because knowing whether we're alone in the universe is deeply curious, especially with younger audiences, right? So how do we answer this question? According to me, there are 3 important pillars to keep in mind. The first is ethics, our responsibility for the truth and to not mislead our audience. The enthusiasm, our responsibility to foster the genuine curiosity that our audience have, especially younger candidates. And the evidence, the scientific standard that we must uphold while we explain our answer to this question, because you miss any of this and it can make or break somebody's interest in a whole field of science, right? So the stakes are kind of high. Right, this is from a classroom study of mine. Before these students were high school or grade 9 to grade 12 students. I asked them to put in words that they thought astrobiology was. And the words are quite fun, right? UFOs, Martians, extraterrestrials and aliens. And this is the after cloud after an hour of session in intensive astrobiology. And the word cloud is quite beautiful. You have some scientific terms, you have stromatolites, exoplanets, habitability, spectroscopy. So how do you get from cloud 1 to cloud 2? I will try to do this in 12 minutes, but yeah. So first of all, what is the need for this talk in and of itself, right? Why am I giving this talk? Because the history of astrobiology is riddled. It's very, very infamous for misinformation. All the way from 1835, there are so many cases, but I won't be able to cover all of them. In 1835, a very famous newspaper in New York called The Sun published an article which said that Sir John Herschel, who is one of the founding members of the Royal Astronomical Society, has discovered life on moon. They describe bat-winged humanoids, vegetation, temples, and the picture is from the newspaper, right? What happened was that it was a complete fabrication by the reporter. And Herschel had no idea for months. But what happened was that the circulation of this newspaper went up from 8,000 to 20,000, more than double. And a lot of people believed in this. Now, why was that? It is because people wanted this to be true. People wanted sources to trust, and that is still true today. A few cases, and I'll quickly run through them. 1957, really famous case in astronomy and astrobiology, where scientist William Sinton claimed that through some IR spectroscopy, he has found evidence for plant life on Mars, lichen-like vegetation on Mars. What actually happened, it was published in the Astrophysical Journal, quite famous. What happened was that he was actually detecting the heavy hydrogen or deuterium in the atmosphere of Earth. The telescope was seeing our own air, it was not Martian surface at all. But it's okay, we make mistakes in science. The learning point here is that overconfidence in a single study can often constrain our learning, right? Very, very famous case. If you're a little bit older, I'm sure you know this 26-year-long saga. In 1996, they found a meteorite in Antarctica, which was from Mars, and they claimed that it had something that looked like fossilized bacteria, which was evidence for life on Mars. And this became so famous that the president of the time of the US, Bill Clinton, actually held a huge press conference. It was international. The saga unfolded slowly throughout the years when they realized that these were actually chemical abiotic reactions. There was no evidence of any life on Mars, let alone bacterial life, right? This case is one of my favorites in astrobiology. It is not a scientific claim, but there's this novel called War of the Worlds, very famous science fiction novel by H.G. Wells, and it's about these aliens that invade the Earth, right? And this person right here, who's under scrutiny of reporters, is called Orson Welles, and he was actually narrating quite wonderfully this novel on radio. But what happened was that in the United States, so many people believed it. They thought that we were actually under attack from Martians. A lot of people started rationing and thinking about where they're going to live anymore, right? Again, the key learning point here is the importance of critical scientific thinking, and that still stands today. And if you think that things are much better in the modern day, we have so much information input that's coming in, you would be wrong. It took me less than 5 minutes to find all of these articles on social media and Google. NASA found life on Mars, strong evidence of life, especially with the 3I Atlas. Is it an alien artifact? It's so famous, right? And one of those, I would like to actually break down on how, because these kind of headlines are really catching to the younger audience. How do you tell them that this is not the truth? What the actual truth is scientific, and it is much more exciting than you might think it is, right? So this is a case study I would like to kind of go through. This is a headline brought forth by a student of mine a few months ago. Human DNA found in a 2 billion year old meteorite. All of us here know for a fact that there is no way this is true, right? But how do you convince people scientifically that this is not true, that this is BS? Sorry. So I say you teach them a backward trace, right? Step one is to understand where this article comes from. I have a tier of sources that I like to put them in a ladder sort of a way. Tier one is this article was in a peer-reviewed journal, or NASA, or ESA, ISRO, University Press. And tier 6 is on social media, reels or YouTube shorts. Now, this is not to say that good science is not done on YouTube or on social media. So many of you are using it as a wonderful medium for science communication. What I mean to say is that if you found a sensationalist headline on tier 6, and if you can't trace it back to tier 1 or 2, there's probably some red flags to think about, right? Next thing. I really encourage a lot of my students to do this, and we should encourage everybody to do this, and you don't have to be an astrobiologist for this, right? That is the internal scientific critique, right? When I received that headline, the first question I asked was, how old do you think humanity is? A quick Google search will tell you that we emerged around 300,000 years ago. So how can there be human DNA on 2 billion year old meteorite? There is a gap of 1.9 billion years, right? What happened in that gap? So that is the impossibility. The key learning point of the lesson here is for us to find contradictions within a claim we see first, before we act on it, right? Independent of external resources. Third step is the actual astrobiological research. What this article probably mistook was some real science that has happened. This is an asteroid called Ryugu that was studied by a Japanese space agency mission called Hayabusa 2. And another very interesting asteroid called Bennu by the NASA OSIRIS-REx mission. And these were really exciting missions because they found ingredients of life, and not life itself, of course. On these very old asteroids, they found amino acids, they found water, they found ammonia, which can make, in theory, they can make DNA, but they won't without life, right? Which brings me to the point of what astrobiology actually is. A lot of people, especially in the Indian subcontinent, are not even aware of what this field entails. It's a very interdisciplinary field where so many people, so many scientists from different disciplines come together to work on a shared goal, which is the possibility of life beyond Earth. You would have physicists that are doing observations, engineers who do instrumentation with JWST and stuff, biologists who study records, there are geologists who study rock records. So it should be taken very seriously, right? Again, step 4 is to meet the scientist, trust the scientist. I really recommend all of you to tell your audience, to tell your students to go to Google Scholar instead of trusting sensationalist headlines. And this is the PI from the Raigo study, a very well-known professor from Japan. This is Daniel Glavin from the Bennu study, who is a NASA scientist, senior NASA scientist. Why I recommend this is so that especially our younger audience, they learn the faces of scientists more than they know the faces of influencers. Please don't feel offended, but you know, when you put the face to the science, you start trusting the science. It's a very naturally human process, right? So, a little bit of the scientific terminology, problem and precision that we came across. Elements in space are very abundant: carbon, nitrogen, or oxygen and hydrogen. They in theory make organic molecules, which are also fairly abundant. And these, in the correct conditions, will make amino acids, which was actually found, and not DNA, which is like 2 steps down and needs cells or actual life, right? At this point, I like to ask my students, so is it boring now? Because you came to me with an expectation that, oh, life has been found somewhere, but it's not life, it's just the ingredients of life. And if it's a younger, honest crowd, they will tell you, oh, it is kind of boring. That's when I increase my enthusiasm. I tell them that asteroids are chemical labs in space. The things that your bodies are made of are floating on rocks like billions of kilometers away. How is that not exciting? How is that not more exciting than, you know, the fake news that you would see, right? These might be fairly obvious to us as communicators, but it's something I hope you make use of. In sensationalist headlines or sensationalist articles, looking out for red flags, that is misinformation, bad signs and good signs, exaggerated claims, language that is heavily exaggerated, and green flags are with proper bibliography, proper citation, words like suggested and indicated, and an actual person who has written this article, right? So yeah, this is something that I personally like to use, and in my opinion, everyone should know how to read a research paper, even if you don't know the science, because the act of reading it will develop a scientific temper. You don't need to know the methods of it at all. So I suggest to create a table like that so that it becomes a fun exercise and not boring. This is a paper from the Bennu study, right? You put down what methods were used, what they did, what they found, and what were the conclusions. This makes it fun, this makes it much more engaging, and it's very transferable, right? So when you read a research paper with intention, you develop your scientific temper and you stay a little bit away from misinformation. Right, so this is again another table that I like to use after I highly recommend you to kind of do this activity where you ask your audience, ask your students to bring you the most fake news sounding, most sensationalist headline, and you make it an activity to break it down, to break down the elements in it, right? And put this in a column like that. It's a very fun class activity. A lot of my students have really enjoyed doing this, where you put the headline claim in parallel to the actual science, right? So what was found? The claim says it was human DNA, right? But in reality, it was amino acids and a record of water. What was the age? The age of this meteorite, so-called, was 2 billion years. But in reality, these are how old the asteroids are when we found them. And my suggestion is to make it fun. Science does not have to be so serious, but it does have to be validated, accurate, and verified, right? With this, I would end my talk. But I'll leave you with this mantra that I like to use, which is certainty without evidence is the enemy of learning. Top here are a few resources, specifically astrobiology centric. A lot of these I have helped develop, for example, the Deep Space Diaries, which we used very nicely at IUCAA SciPop as well. So please check this out. Feel free to contact me. I am very active on email like a lot of academics are. And thank you so much for your time. I hope you learned a little something. Thank you. Do we have time for questions?
Yeah, we have a couple of minutes. Thank you for that talk, and you know that especially it's pretty much in the news all the time about something like that. So we take a couple of questions. Yeah.
So my question is, although there are a lot of tabloid news who just would like to fantasize everything, but do you think is the reason one of the some sample of this tabloidization is because scientists are too technical in explaining their stuff. So by the time it has to reach, people fill in their own interpretation.
100%, that is absolutely true, which is why I kind of developed the tier system, where you may not trust you should not trust the tabloidish article, but you can trust sources like BBC News, or New Scientist, or Nat Geo.
I would argue that also, but
Yeah, I mean, you can continue to, but it's easier, which is why everybody should know how to at least skim through a research paper that develops a public scientific temper.
I have also a comment, because you said trust the scientists, but
Yes.
we know that Avi Loeb and Mitsuko, or whatever his name, they kept talking about that N1 comet is
Yes,
an
yes.
alien craft and published even
Absolutely.
papers. Avi Loeb published papers.
Yes,
So
yes.
trust the scientists is also with a certain
It
constraint.
is. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. But for a lay person, these are the kind of nitty-gritties that we know as astronomy educators, as communicators. For the lay person who would trust a random YouTube source who's unverified, I think it is a step ahead better to trust the scientists. I would say trust all of them. The first thing of a good scientist is be critical. A scientist will ask you to be critical of them if it's a good scientist. So it also depends on us and the scientific temper we develop together. I hope that answers your question. Are we done on time?
Also, yeah, I think we are out of time. So
Perfect.
thank you so much for that
Thank you.
talk, and that was a great learning point for all of us. So next we have another great misconception in the community about eclipses. So talking about that, we have Prasanna Deshmukh from Indian Institute of Astrophysics.
So I'm Prasanna Deshmukh. I'm giving this talk on behalf of IAS Group. Yeah. So I'm giving this talk on behalf of one big team, including IAS Hope team, where we conducted this Lunar Eclipse campaign to tackle misinformation, which is usually propagated during the eclipse time, and also show some data which helps us to understand why eclipses are very important. Not because just they are beautiful, but because they give us opportunity for tackling the misinformation and countering the misinformation proactively. So this particular eclipse, which was in September 2025, was a very unique one in terms of the time scale. The last eclipse was in 2018, and the next one after now is 2028. So it was a long gap is there, and we got this opportunity to talk about the eclipse, spread some good information about it or correct information about it. So that way it was good. And our main goal was to use eclipse as a catalyst to promote scientific temper and also tackle misinformation through unified campaigns. So that this is something different than what we have seen before. So in India, especially you might have seen that the news media, traditional news media as well as social media is kind of very active during the eclipse, and most probably you will see some fake news or incorrect news about the eclipse. You can see some leading news media houses propagating information which is not scientifically correct. It causes some kind of fear and myths about eclipse. Especially we have myths about the food, health, pregnant women, related concerns where it discourages safe viewing of eclipse, and our aim was to basically explain myths and versus their realities or counterparts. So our strategy was divided into 4 pillars. So initially to create a network of same like-minded individuals, then do resource creation, because Usually eclipse related resources are created by individuals and they are in different formats, but whereas we wanted to have a centralized resource creation platform where we create the resources and distribute across the network. Then next was training, empowering the teachers, empowering the librarians, or empowering the members who are kind of promoting science and astronomy, and also mass dissemination. So basically using modern days platform to kind of help propagate this information. And one of the theme was to basically move our outreach from fragmented outreach to a collaborative ecosystem. So this is the first step. We created a platform called as PAC. It is called as Platform for Astronomy Communicators in Karnataka. It was a group of 22 organizations and 11 individual communicators across Karnataka who came together. This is the very first meeting, and it included different types of members, including research institutes, planetarium, amateur astronomers, educators, universities, NGOs, and it was also another theme which we had kept in mind is to create open source and non-commercial without fee-based kind of promoting material, so that it will kind of propagate inclusivity and accessibility. And we also facilitated and created platforms for resource sharing and synchronizing this eclipse event through a common platform. This is a list of all the members, including organizations, individuals. Next, we also created a network of an informal network of group of institutes and science communicators in Tamil Nadu. So there were two parallel networks. One was for Tamil Nadu and one was for Karnataka. And here also we collaborated with Tamil Nadu Education Department to reach schools and introduce outreach component in that school program, and also leverage the networks like One Week Mandaram to connect with the rural students to propagate our information about the eclipse. So in terms of resources, we created posters in multiple languages, in English, Tamil and Kannada, and created infographics explaining details about the eclipse so that people have correct information, and also created stickers. Sticker is a very important aspect of any outreach I feel. I remember attaching one of the sticker on back of my mobile. It was there for next 3 months, even after the eclipse, and it was giving me opportunity to kind of spark a discussion with anyone I used to meet. So stickers are very good because they are sticky and they will propagate that information even little more further. Yeah. And also video outreach. Sonam and other members created a video in Ladakhi language, which was very useful, so as to change the narration or show the narrate the eclipse as a very beautiful event. So yeah, so these are the snapshot of posters, 3 different languages. This is also another important thing, that when you create an English poster, you also try to create a poster in the local language. Usually, previously it might be difficult, but nowadays due to AI and other tools, you will be able to do it. Of course, do cross-check the details because sometimes AI also does mistakes. These are the infographics giving different details. Very nice looking infographics were created. And what matters is the numbers, because when you're now creating a platform, creating the resource material, now you have to reach to every single possible person. These are the stickers I was selling. So this is the reach which we got. We printed 50,000 posters and distributed across Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Also, posters were sticked every possible place which you could imagine where people are supposed to be seeing, and 6,000 stickers were distributed across the school. So every time you give a talk, do try to distribute the stickers. They're not very costly, but at the same, they're very good in propagating the information one step ahead. And also reaching the grassroots level through multilingual content, because not everyone will be able to read your English posters. So once we had that, we also created training sessions for teachers and librarians. So 2 sessions were conducted at Kodaikanal Solar Observatory and BBO in Tamil Nadu. And we also had a session for 60 librarians across Karnataka through RDPI department to enable them going ahead and propagating that information further. Yeah. So RDPR was also a specifically important because they have a network and they are well connected over WhatsApp. So all our information was reaching immediately to the resource persons, which were basically librarians, and who further communicated that information to their local schools and nearby areas. And all this information was in Kannada, so it was very easy for us to communicate. We also conducted school events. You will see some of our spoke members giving talks and demonstrations in the schools in Bangalore, in Mysuru, and yeah, so this was also good. And we also demonstrated how eclipse happens. So as to instead of just saying eclipse happens, we can demonstrate through such kind of prompts as well as role plays, which will help them to understand the mechanism, and then when they actually see the eclipse, they can correlate these aspects. We also gave a talk at IIIT Bangalore. But while we were doing it, we initially created a platform and we created material for ourselves. At the same time, since our platform was existing, they were getting all the information. They further propagated that information to their local events and local eclipse watches. So these are the posters. These are only few limited posters I have shown here. There are many more. And they conducted 16 plus events and 15 eclipse sky watches were conducted at the same time. And we got benefited from them, they got benefited from our campaign. So it was kind of a coordinated effort. And all of them are showing a similar kind of information, which means it helps to the communicators to get an initial start in what format and what content they should include. Because it was open source, it is easy to share and reuse. So as you can see, the same, our pack members, other communicators were kind of doing the events at their localities. So you basically reach at grassroots levels. And also our members who are present on the social media as well as news channels along with other experts you can see in this image. We also have a very kind of strategized media strategy rather, wherein we wanted to control the narrative around the eclipse. So usually if we see the news media as well as newspapers, we'll see false information about the eclipse, that it is not safe and it is dangerous and so on and so forth. And as yesterday also somebody mentioned that Narlikar used to believe that instead of just cross-countering the argument of people who are giving false information, you just go ahead and propagate the information which is right. So it is basically, in astronomy we call it as signal to noise ratio. So noise will always be there, you just increase the amount of signal. So, and that's why those numbers which I mentioned, 50,000, 1 lakh numbers, all those numbers matter at that point. So our strategy was to conduct press conferences. We conducted press conference in Bangalore, you can see some of the images, and also media members were present. So we distributed the press releases to them so that they will propagate right information instead of just imagining what eclipse means. And also myth-busting discussions and demonstrations were done. And one good thing was everyone who was talking about the eclipse from the PRAC team were having same narration or same message. So that way you can have a unified campaign. So on the night of eclipse, we had a live stream. So because we are having access to all our wonderful observatory sites, so we had a multi-site feed on our YouTube channel. We had a feed from Leh, Hanle, Kavadu, Kodaikanal, Bengaluru, as well as we collaborated with other institutes to get their feeds. And one of the things which was very unique, but it was very difficult to coordinate, and Niruj managed to do that, is while the live stream was happening, he was ensuring that there are people who can speak in different languages go online on the same stream and discuss about the eclipse in the local language. So you can see almost more than 10 languages we were able to explain the eclipse. So because on YouTube you will see members from all across India as well as abroad. So it is better to have local content or language which is understandable by the people. Yeah. So that was something unique. We also, as I said, we collaborated with other institutes, and of course this is views from the day when eclipse concluded. We had around 74,000 views during the eclipse, and around 50,000 unique viewers were there. But now this number is much higher. One interesting thing which we had noticed in our past eclipse events is typically all our entire YouTube channel gets less views, which is well known for everyone that in general science channels nobody observes except few famous YouTube channels. We end up watching all other content apart from science information. but during the eclipse, all the eyes will be towards the eclipse live streams. So these are some of the graphs from past and present eclipse. And what we notice is, in comparison, solar eclipse is very beautiful and very fascinating, but it gives us lesser opportunity compared to lunar eclipse, because lunar eclipse lasts for 5 hours. Hence, you will have more number of unique viewers and more opportunity for kind of propagating right information. So, in that context, of course, use solar eclipse, but use lunar eclipse even more planned fashion, because you will have more unique viewers during that time. Yeah. Of course, our members were present on BBC during that time. You can see here. We also were featured on ANI, and these videos have more than 100,000 views each. And on the day of eclipse, of course, now this might have gone up to million. We had an on-ground event. Of course, we limited it to a few number of people because we wanted to have more presence on online event, but we don't wanted to disappoint people who were coming to IA. So we limited around 200 participants at IA headquarters and around 60 visitors at Kodaikanal. But our main event was mostly online, and the main work was done before the eclipse by propagating the right information and aligning everyone towards the eclipse and running away from it. So yeah, so this has good impact. You can see this is the event when eclipse was going on, and you can also see a bright light. And during the astronomy events, we don't allow such kind of bright lights to be there. But this was for a special incident where there was a documentary being filmed during the eclipse. So that's why you can see the light for a few minutes during the event. So we have a documentary by Wolfram Laboratories, which is available now on YouTube, covering entire thing about the eclipse and views about the people. And you can see it will be over here. So some of the key strengths of what are the learnings. The pack model was quite unique. We created open source material, cultural relevance in terms of language, and hybrid strategy of having in-person and online event was a good thing. We had qualitative and quantitative impact, wherein we brought together communicators. We got good amount of views, and we also distributed large amount of material to people, and that material will be lying somewhere in the with the people. So whenever they get to see it, it creates an opportunity for them to get realigned to the scientific facts and question themselves about the eclipse and its impacts. Of course, we also have qualitative impacts, which are I'll not mention in detail about it. In collaborative way, by bringing together scientific institutes and grassroots organizations, we were able to kind of replace fear with knowledge to some extent, of course. When we replicate this thing at all the places wherever eclipse happens, wherever outreach happens, so we will be able to have even better impact. And scientific temple thrives when information is open source, inclusive, and delivered to the people in their language. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very good information. So I'll just take one question if somebody has.
So, about lunar eclipse, are there the same problems with lunar eclipse also as with general public, as the solar eclipse, or they are less scared of it?
Yeah, I think all the eclipses have, of course, solar eclipse is seen in the daytime, so people can notice it even vividly rather than lunar eclipse. Most of the time, lunar eclipse happens in the late evenings or in the midnight when people are anyway sleeping. Yeah, solar eclipse has more dramatic fear part compared to lunar eclipse. But lunar eclipse especially matters because there are stories. Of course, I don't remember as well, but there are so many stories about how lunar eclipse happens. At the same time, red moon and blue moon and all these colorful moons, people are now fantasizing.
And the scary names also.
Yeah, and then
especially wolf moon, some down.
Yeah, so many types of moons are there. Yeah, and then especially pregnant women, there is a belief that they should not move and kind of they have to take some precautions during the that kind of misconceptions are there. Yeah, and then as I said, instead of going behind them, we thought that it will be better to go ahead and increase the signal quantity rather than noise.
Yeah, just to actually expand upon what she was saying, that actually here yes, both eclipses are considered pretty much equally evil, because usually what makes people superstitious, or rather what are their beliefs are regarding what you should do and should not do during the eclipse time. So that kind of carries over for both the eclipses. But as we said, because the lunar eclipse happens in the night time, most of that can get bypassed. But during the daytime, that becomes more prominent. So unfortunately, those beliefs do remain.
Yeah, you can even see some another news channel. They have published a solar eclipse image during the lunar eclipse news.
So, thank you for that. And now we're moving on to the next session, which is science journalism. And first we are inviting Anjali Marar from Indian Express.
Hello, good afternoon. Am I audible? Yes. Okay. Thank you to those who have gathered here, and thank you to the predecessing speakers who have set the stage. Some of my information which I would have otherwise shared has been taken care of, and I think I'll get some time to also speak. So I'll be talking about birthing a science story, just giving you a glimpse as to what all goes to behind the scene as a journalist, as a reporter, arriving at a science story before you actually read it somewhere. So if I may just ask, how many of you all still read newspapers, e-papers for your daily information consumption? Online, offline? Okay, quite a few of them. How many of you really go and verify the source of it, as Pallavi was mentioning earlier? How many of them really see the source of it, or you'll just quickly Google it, whatever the first and the second prompts come up, you read up and then you enjoy? What is it? You all verify it? Yes, okay. So basically, the scientific way or the journalistic way of approaching a science article is to inform and update the audience with the most available, verified and up-to-date information up to that point in time. Sometimes the stories are unfolding, not all the information is available, but the attempt is always to give the most latest information in a manner that all the characters in the story are given a voice to speak, so that there is a balance in the article, it's not sounding one-sided, so it doesn't become a lunar eclipse instead of a solar eclipse, or somebody else is misrepresented. So the idea is always to give voices to as many people as possible. Yes, the intention is also to dispel rumors, to put away information which is not correct. Somebody tells you the world is going to end tomorrow, is something falling on my head, should I run away? To dispel all those information. So as a journalist, as a reporter, my first task is to catch hold of scientists, catch hold of people who know about it, get it verified, get the information to, even is it correct, and then go and attempt and do a storytelling. And yes, in all this process, what as journalists we are doing is also documenting, archiving and recording the milestones which are happening in the scientific arena. Many a times some big events are happening, it's there sitting in the journal, only limited people read it, but as a representative from the mass communication or mass media, we are also documenting and recording the major archival events, which is to be archived. Of course, I listed some of the sources where journalists stumble upon stories. Not all of them are listed. Some of them are secret and cannot be revealed, but most common ones are out here. So if I'm talking to Professor Yogesh here, if I'm talking to Mila, maybe in the conversation there may be some sparks here and there. I may have to keep all my senses up and open so that I can go back to them and talk to them later on. So the sources can be many. It's up to the journalist to take up the ideas and go along. Okay, so I want to present some of my works here, and I have divided them into these 4 categories, and I'll walk you all through.
So I would want a little bit of respect, responsive audience here. I'll show you all some of the images, see if you all can identify and help this. So the first case study I want to present before you all is an infrastructure, scientific infrastructure or a facility, which is a clue also. So anybody who can recognize the gentleman there in the bottom or know this place? Okay, the obvious people I will not come to you, but I still want you all to spend a few seconds looking at the image at the bottom and also here.
Could you zoom in?
Sorry?
Could you zoom in?
Could I zoom in? I'm not sure if this allows me, but
This is LIGO India site.
that's right. It's a LIGO India site. This was taken 2 years ago, and this is the only image I had before me when I went and visited the site. The red roof. It's a roof of the office, LIGO India office, which is there in a neighboring structure. And this is the road where one of the roads which leads to LIGO India presently, and he is one of the characters in my story here. So the article or the story in this did not talk about what LIGO India is, which is again very commonly available, but the attempt was to talk to locals there and to know what they know about LIGO India and how they think LIGO India could be beneficiary. So he is one of the farmers. His name was Raju Das. And he was one of the proponents of bringing together the farming community who had to let go their land away so that the project could come in. So he told an interesting story that when he was approaching his fellow farming friends in the community, they were so upset with letting away their land that they even would let loose the dogs so that the government officials would run away. So it was not a very happy scenario when this land acquisition was going on. So these are some information which Google or AI will not tell you. It's only when you go there on the ground and you see the reality there, and this is what you will hear from the ground. So this was the article on the left which got published, and this spoke about LIGO India. This was 2 years ago when the government had actually announced the monetary sum for it, and this is a more recent article when the construction was expected to begin. Moving on to the second category, I don't think this image needs any introduction, but this is the entrance of Sriharikota, ISRO's spaceport. Okay, the interesting story behind this story, how this came about, is the second spaceport when ISRO announced in Kulasekarapatnam in Tamil Nadu, is when I wanted to go and see how was the first facility. I don't know if I were to compare it right between the first and the second, I need to first go and visit this. But it so happened that it took me almost 8 to 10 months to get permission to enter this space. So I had to keep pursuing so that they allow me inside and go to this space. And finally, when the permission arrived 8 months later, it happened to be just any other ordinary day at ISRO. There was no launch happening, there was no madness, there was no activity happening. The challenge was, what do you write out of it? But then again, it was going around. There was some launch coming up in a few weeks from now. They gave me access to see the things, to witness the things. So this was basically featuring the spaceport of India when there's not much of a happening. But we only see the launch day, we only see the countdown, last 24 hours of countdown, last half an hour of countdown. We see a launch, okay, everything's successful, everything is great, the ISRO chairman gives a statement and everything is good. But the effort that goes behind it on an ordinary day is what this article tried to put across. But looking at the Bay of Bengal from a really tall building in one of the facilities was humbling enough. That was a great. Okay, not all science stories are straightforward and everything's positive. There are times when science also is in trouble and science is also calling for help. So, a couple of occasions were involving GMRT, which is right here in Pune, and this was because of some issue, some governmental issue where GMRT's operations was actually threatened. The first instance was when a spectrum, which was not supposed to be allocated to anybody, went into the hands of a very big player in the telecom industry, and there were a series of stories which had to be written, and then this issue had to be brought before the government. The challenge here was nobody was taking the ownership. The information coming in was very frugal, and people didn't want to speak openly about it, but yes, it was affecting the this large facility. More recently was involving one of the, again, a development project involving a rail line connecting Pune and Nasik. Again, there were multiple stakeholders involved, but how do you save GMRT? So, should the article have been pro-science and anti-government? It's very easy to get labeled in such scenarios. But still, you have to put forth the information before the public. Again, as I said, talk to all the stakeholders possible. And thankfully, in both the cases, the problems, so-called problems were resolved, and GMRT was at least saved for time being. This may not directly be linked to astronomy or astrophysics, but this was again a very issue which the young researchers were facing when their stipends were not being disbursed properly, and their problem had to be put forth. So it's not about facility, it's not about science, instruments and all, everything is built up, but there are people involved, people who are attached to it, and it needs to be told as well. Moving on to the next category, I will have to bring in Professor Narlikar here, as we all are gathered here for this meeting and this very place. The article I'd like to show here, or the story I'd like to bring up before you next, is writing an obituary. Writing an obituary for a journalist is one of the toughest things which you have to write to on that particular day. The information coming in is, it's not easy to get to people to talk to you on that day. For various reasons, it's one of the challenging stories to tell, and also to live in that on that day and bring out information, because this is not something which can be held back for another 2 days. So I probably chose not to write the very well-known facts about Professor Narlikar, but what I decided to focus was bring the sports person inside him, or his love for cricket is what I wanted to really bring out in one of the obituary articles among the many which were written about him. Okay, again, if anybody of you is not attentive, I have a picture next to me flashed here. Let's see how many of them can identify people in here. If you can identify 2 people, you all are pretty old. If you can identify 3 people, you all are ancient. Let's see. Okay, Pandit Nehru and Vikram Sarabhai, so there are old people here. Okay, this picture dates back to 1962. Many of them, including me, were not alive, probably, not born. But the article where this picture was used was not about either of the people you all named, but it is about Professor E.V. Chitnis, who happened to be a contemporary of Professor Sarabhai, or the right-hand man of Professor Sarabhai. And one interesting detail about this article is that it was about the centenary year of Professor Chitnis. The information for this story happened across over 10 years. It was not a planned article. It just so happened that there was so much information that was gathered, and I thought this was the best fitting occasion to write about it. But I will have to say that the information was so much, it was hard to write it down in, or tell the story in about 3,000 or 5,000 words. It could have gone to 2 volumes easily. So this was the story. Of course, this is also a very favorite story of mine. Of course, IA has a credit for giving this picture. This story spoke about, or is talking about, how astronomy is being used as a developmental tool in an area which is not very easy to access, not very easy to live in, and how IIA and the local government understood the importance of preserving dark sky reserve, after which it was declared. And this story spoke about these youngsters, and it also compared how stargazing is different in different parts of the world, or in different parts of India, but why this Hanle remains one of the most pristine skies. Okay, so all this before I put you is the stories which got published, the stories I could tell you, the processes which I told you before for all the stories. But do you think every story that we attempt as a journalist, every information that we get through gets published? No. So there are if there are 10 stories which got published, there are at least equal numbers which never see the light of the day. So it's not that all stories have happy endings, and it's not that all the stories get published. But information is with us. We also have to be sensible enough to know what information should go out and what should not go out. So every day I tell myself that there's a story out there to be told, there are new characters to be known and to be spoken about, written about, and that is how this journey continues. Just like the astronomy community gets excited about a new result, to me, every new story is like, just like a motherly feeling, you feel like you're delivering a story. And before I conclude, I'd like to acknowledge my editor, scientists, and everybody who has trusted me with the information and has seen through the process of delivering a story and publishing a story. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for discussing the process with us. It was very informative. So I'll take a couple of questions.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And just for the online use. Hello, yeah. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And I believe you are one of the most powerful people in this room when it comes to astronomy or science communication. I probably read about that the allocation issue when Reliance Jio.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it was a premium article, so I didn't read further on. But did you get to the bottom of that? How it happened and how things like these affect big science breakthrough projects like GMRT?
Yes. So there were a series of articles which investigated what happened. So it was a governmental technical error, but it took a long process to get out of it, and it was a technical error. It was not done deliberately. So it was, yeah. So the articles later clarified it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll take it to him.
Ashishma will calculate. So when do you define success? For instance, the story that you showed about stipends, maybe that solved a problem, but that is a recurring problem, for instance.
Yes.
What happens
Yes.
then?
So temporarily, the government did address that matter, and a lot of things got clarified. So there is no permanent solution to anything. It's always a recurring cycle. I'm sure this is even prevalent today. It's not solved, but when those series of articles or when those protests were happening, when the matter was taken care of, and the media was able to highlight the issue for the government. Yeah. So we were just the rider to put the issue in front of the government.
I'll take it to Neeraj.
Thanks for a lovely talk, Anji. I want to ask a couple of questions as an individual.
Yes.
You said science in trouble. What happens when trouble is in the science? So when institutions or scientists are not completely honest about the science they're doing, or there's some kind of a reluctance to tell you how things actually are.
Yes.
What do you do in such situations? And also what do you do in situations where there's a push from the government and institutions to carry only positive and publicity-oriented rather than science-oriented articles?
Absolutely. In the current times or in the recent years, our sources have become really, really minuscule. People are not opening up. People don't want to talk to us. In the face of it, it looks like it's not a genuine science work that is happening. It is it's getting really difficult to run the show and get people to talking. Even a normal conversation is not happening. It's only when there is an event when the media is called in, or when there's something positive to be showcased when media is called in. But it also depends on the other side of institutions. So I wouldn't want to blame an institution or an individual, but even if there's a healthy dialogue between media and and the institutions, even when there are no events, even when there is no specific requirement, even that will help the process of building trust. And there are challenges, yes. It is not possible that every time you'll see a positive story. There is a filter. Even as I said, there are 10 stories which never got published. There were some issues of this kind because somebody on the other side didn't verify the information. Somebody said, no, this is wrong, or somebody told me, oh, it's Friday evening, it's late, come back to me on Monday, but my press doesn't work that way. So it happens that way. It is challenging. It is challenging beyond all the existing which I have listed. And it is getting really difficult, not just in India. I think globally it's becoming difficult for media to function in general.
So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So next we have Shiv Shankar Palit from the Life 2 and Beyond Foundation with talking about your newsletter.
Hello. Hello. Hello everyone. I hope I am audible to those. Oh, great. I am Shiv Shankar Palit from Kolkata, and I represent the Life 2 and Beyond Foundation. So essentially, till now you all have been hearing about comprehensive science or space stories or like misinformation. But when it comes to a newsletter, you have to brief it down to a lot of things. It's more about information sharing, but also some stories, but in a brief manner, because you have to cover many things. And when it comes to digital newsletters, of course, like it functions differently compared to the print media. So this is a digital newsletter by the Life 2 and Beyond Foundation. Just to brief about us, we are a Section 8 company based out of Kolkata, and we have both research as well as educational works going on. And in terms of our initial research interests, we have started with the baby steps in areas like space life science, space education, or space science economy, and also astrochemistry and astrobiology. And when it comes to space education services and the products, it includes workshops or events, or let's say fairs or festivals, and of course the kits related to STEAM and space that we provide. And we are more dedicated towards impacting the eastern and northeastern parts of India, where there is a scarcity, we believe, and we want to cater to that. That's in short about us. You can see the 4 initiatives here. And one of our initiatives is the Beyonders initiative, under which we conduct all the science communication related activities. And one of it is, of course, the Beyonders newsletter. And there's a lot of information. Earlier there was scarcity of information, but today there is excessive of information. And at the same time, it is very difficult to understand which information is correct, which opportunity is correct, which opportunity is a fraud, or where the opportunity exists, many things. So when it comes to all of this, the newsletter comes handy, and that's why a summarized content, peer-reviewed content, every month we try to provide it through the Beyonders newsletter. Yes, you can always scan the Beyonders newsletter to find it out. It's a one-stop destination for astronomy and space content. Now, coming directly to the contents and how and why it has been inspired and what it can help us understand and how it is different from the other newsletter available globally when it comes to astronomy and space. So first is the cover of the newsletter. I think so one of the themes of this conference was also space art. So when it comes to space art, at least in India I have seen this, we just limit it to children's competition, space art competition. We give them a theme, you draw it, you get some prize, thank you, bye bye. But then just like astronomy or any other science, art itself is something to be understood. So our cover every month, we try to curate different kind of art, taking inspiration from the very popular forms of art. Like for example, you see this one, this is from the November 2025. This is inspired by the Gond art in Madhya Pradesh. But then we know November is Children's Day, both international and national. But then you see, it's written, we are children of the stars. It's a common thing that we know, that how stars itself make us all. And then this is a very popular artwork, you all know, the Ghibli artwork. Right, it's the time when Shubhanshu Shukla also went to space. So Shubhanshu Shukla's 4 crew Axiom space mission people, and the Ghibli art was in trend that time, so we used this as a cover. And then these are the 3 first women who went to space. This is the fresco style, like the ones in the ceilings of churches in Western countries especially. And this is the famous Patachitra art from Odisha, West Bengal, or Bihar places. So all of these has the space or astronomy theme, but also incorporates a properly, let's say, years and years of done artwork style. So we use AI initially, but then we also try to edit it such that the artistic details are correct using graphic people, and then add the space theme to it. So this is about the cover. So we add a description about the artwork, what it means, and also which artwork has been taken as an inspiration for this month. Now, the Beyonders blog is essentially not a news article blog, of course, like ma'am was sharing now, but it is more of a sharing about stories that are more personalized or humanized, because after all, science is also people. But then science can be humanized, but it shouldn't again be going towards the illogical direction as well. So keeping the science part or the thinking part and also the human part, we take various stories, and the basic part is to also address the question, who is writing, the author, how one connects to space. Like for example, I wrote this story about Shubhanshu Shukla's recent visit to Kolkata in December. So there are various news articles you will find about what he shared and what like when he came and this and that. But then the conversations that he had with a kid who was sharing, like a question was asked that I want to become an astronaut, but how do I convince my parents? This was a question asked by a kid. But then Shubhanshu Shukla went on to ask her mother, why should she even convince you? And then he goes on to say that, like, I'll give my mother's number to your mother's. So these are some stories which are, let's say, personal, but at the same time goes on to say that we have come a long way to in human space exploration as well. Right? So keeping the human part alive, along with the science or the information that is being shared by an astronaut or a scientist, or let's say some let's say tours to some scientific facility, be it, let's say, the cold desert of analog site of Mars in Ladakh near to the Han Lake, and or let's say be it some extremophile studies in astrobiology and all, keeping the science part alive but still human. And then of course this is a new section that we have started. Nobody likes to let's say that you're wrong, right? So this is a very major problem that I've seen, that often scientists or science communicators forget to be empathetic at times. But then if we be empathetic enough, but at the same time share the information that I think so one of our previous speakers were sharing, that there will be noise, but then we have to develop the signal, right? So we have to share the facts. It is not for us to say that you are wrong and you are like stupid and all. These all are not way to share the science. But then we should put the facts, and I think so as humans we are at least kind of good enough to decide what is right and what is wrong. But I think so some of us still continue to believe, but for them we cannot help, unfortunately. So there are like every month we come up with a different myth or a misconception regarding, let's say, astronomy or space, and try to teach it more scientifically with a graphic, of course. And yes, there are opportunities that we try to share from time to time, in fact this events as well, and the events that we conduct in various languages and globally that we share, so that students can contribute to it. And of course the astronomical or space launch events that take place from time to time, that also is shared. And yes, events like this, which of course the main part is the networking, right? So socializing in such kind of events, it's a pleasure to meet many people. So different kinds of events that happen from month to month, we keep on sharing about those. Yes, Star was born. This section, I suppose, is the second last of all. Like it shares about the story in brief about a scientist or a science professional or an amateur science professional, or even some of our team members on their like birth anniversary, of course. So you can see the famous Jayant Narlikar sir there, and like from Dr. Jayant Narlikar to even Radha Govinda Chandra, the famous amateur astronomer from Bengal who worked on variable stars, to even, let's say, women in science and some of our teammates doing work in space. So we keep on sharing about these stories. So keeping it human, but also sharing the science that they've contributed. Because often we know the name of scientists, but the public don't even know what they have done. And yes, the Beyonder of the Month, especially it is not about the people or the person or a single person, but let's say somebody who has been, let's say, known to the people, or people have come across such content related to space or like science or environment in a particular month. We try to feature them as Beyonder of the Month. Like you can see, of course, Shubhanshu Shukla went to space, or let's say Sunny Rai during the Pride Month, or let's say Space Art, these are the kids, those who did it. Or let's say in May 2024, there was a surge in the solar activity. So there were many, like Instagram and Facebook was filled with those photos, right? And then there are more like environmentalists, or let's say Sunita Williams and Wilmore coming back from space. So these are stories that are in trend, but then they help space come among the public, right? So in that way we consider our Beyonder of the Month, and of course share about our activities from time to time, monthly, on like every month. And yes, we have our patrons, those who support some of us amongst our free subscribers, those who like get the jobs and business opportunity notifications, and as well as in astronomy and space. And from time to time, like 24 hours before any astronomical event or any space launch, we try to send a notification to them. And it's on, first we started with Microsoft Sway 2 years back, 6 months after, then we shifted to LinkedIn. Now we are active on LinkedIn, 1700 plus subscribers, and now we are also considering Substack soon. Thanks to our testimonials, those who have shared their feedback, and also we have a form so that we keep on improving. Like the art one that you saw, initially we didn't start with a space art cover every month. But it was just this April that we thought that space art also can find its way through the cover of our newsletter. And yes, the Republic Day is coming soon. Something that it reminds us is that our Constitution is made, but then to humans, curiosity comes naturally, but I think so does stupidity, right? So, but then again, our Constitution, which itself mentions that to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform, which the Constitution of India, which is unique enough compared to other constitutions, which it entrusts upon us as a fundamental duty. At least we should remember that. And I think so that Beyond This newsletter is contributing just a bit to that greater fundamental duty that we all are interested with. So I would end with the lines of Tagore from the Gitanjali, where the mind is without fear. In one of the lines he says, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habits. I feel that is the condition of India today, where there are festivals that we celebrate which were initially made based on astronomical calendars, but the calendar is not fixed. We keep on celebrating festivals without even understanding many things. So let the scientific temper be alive, and thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm open to any questions if any.
Thank you for sharing about the Beyond This newsletter. Any questions?
Nice talk. I want to understand what is that keeps you sustaining. Where do you get your information from? Because it's a monthly publication. So what are your sources and how do you keep it sustaining?
Essentially, we have a full community. Let's say when it comes to these astronomical events, of course, you get it. Some are like unverified, we remove those. But then for opportunities, we have a good community. Those who are, let's say, working in some place outside India or in India, or let's say even like, of course, the greater community sitting here, we take help of WhatsApp groups, and also we collect it throughout the month. And one more thing, this newsletter comes out in the second half of the month. So we still have some ample time. But for the stories, frankly, we have started on the blog end. We still are we'll still open it up to more submissions soon in different languages. So we want to cater to different languages, and let's hope that we get more through that.
So we have one more question.
Hi, great content. You have great ideas for your newsletter covers, which you showed, but I just want to understand why did you choose to go with AI illustrations? There are a lot of science illustrators, a lot of people who do art, even there are students who want to do it pro bono or for building their skill set. So why, if we don't support illustrators as a community, then?
There are two reasons. First is a very obvious, funding issues. And second, I'll just tell, when it comes to Indian art styles, like the ones that I was talking, these different Indian art forms, they have a specific way, or the motifs or the component in the artwork needs to be similar, like some has some leaves or forestry components. So unfortunately in our network we have very little people, artists, those who knows these different art styles. That is one of the major problems. Okay, but then given you have suggested, like of course, like we have illustrators, but then they do the accuracy, like after AI generates it, they removes all the wrong or let's say inaccurate parts and like enhances it. Okay, but then full, like from scratch to the ultimate cover, we haven't tried that like with Illustrator as of now.
Any more questions? Thank you for that talk.
Thank you very much.
And I think with that we come to the close of this session. So thank you everyone for joining, and I think it's the time for tea now.
There's a poster session.
poster? So I guess it's time for posters now, so we'll go ahead and go for the 1-minute flash talks for the posters. So we can just go ahead and see the posters now.
Thank you.